Hello and welcome to the 23rd episode of the Unnamed Political Podcast. Today we're going to be discussing if North Korea does or does not have the hydrogen bomb, the recent downturn in the U.S. economy and how it correlates to China's, and also the Syrian refugee crisis and how it connects, obviously, to the greater crisis going on in the Middle East.
Rarely is the question asked, how is our children learning?
My fellow Americans.
Corporations are people, my friend.
Our country is in serious trouble.
I did not send classified material, and I did not receive any material that was marked or designated classified.
But man is not free unless government is limited.
Bringing you opinions on historic, current, and international politics. Welcome to the Unnamed Political Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the 23rd episode of the Unnamed Political Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Horvath.
I'm your host, Clark Wolverine.
And today we'll be talking about North Korea's recent claim that they have a hydrogen bomb, the recent tumble in the U.S. stocks as 2016 approaches, we're in 2016, what am I talking about, and the Middle East.
We'll just say the Middle East, but when we're saying the Middle East, the refugee crisis is mainly not
Carrying over to parts
starting
of
in the
Europe
Middle East,
as well.
but Europe is the one who's getting the most press about it right now.
Yeah.
Alright, but starting with North Korea. Recently, over the past week, North Korea detonated something which they're claiming to be a hydrogen bomb. All news sources, run by the North Korean government, state it's a hydrogen bomb, state that it's the pinnacle of their ability to strike fear into the hearts of the West, but recent articles kind of shoot down that idea. Jack?
Well, I think first we have to address what a hydrogen bomb is. A hydrogen bomb is a bomb obviously made of hydrogen that's a lot more powerful.
The bomb itself isn't made of hydrogen.
Well, it has hydrogen isotopes included in its
Yeah.
and other ingredients as well, of course, but it's basically it's stronger than your conventional, nuclear weapon.
Yeah, so nuclear war.
I think, what do we want to talk about? It's
how they
effects.
might not have it.
Well, I think it says on here, on this New York Times article, very credible, it says, it's minorly credible, but anyway.
But it's still.
It says that when the U.S. first detonated their hydrogen bomb way back in 1971 in Alaska, because they wouldn't be able to detonate it here, is that it had a 6.8 earthquake, while the one that was recent, it says 6.8 here, but it says in in North Korea where it was detonated, there was only a 4.8 magnitude earthquake.
Right. So, but then to, I guess, in one regard, one could argue that debatably that simply means that North Korea just has a smaller hydrogen bomb, but again, there are other facts that contradict that. Jack?
So, this 4.8 magnitude earthquake that happened, which was part of the hydrogen bomb, was even smaller than the last nuclear bomb of any kind that they detonated back in 2013. So that's another thing that contradicts their claim of having a hydrogen bomb.
Because in theory, if the hydrogen bomb is working, it should have a bigger yield. But they might have it, they might not. But overall, I would say, this isn't going to change anything huge. North and South Korea always have tension.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was starting to get a little bit better. Since we hadn't had any nukes since 2013, they had the whole incident in 2014 with the interview. I guess what we kind of notice is each year we kind of rotate from thing to thing to thing that we're scared about, and that's the biggest issue.
Right.
At the end of 2014, it was North Korea, and they haven't been back into the cycle of things to be scared of until right about now. Right. We kind of moved on to Russia and ISIS for the time being, and I guess to a lesser, or not even to a lesser extent because they're so connected to Syria, Bashar al-Assad, that sort of thing. But now North Korea is coming back up on the wheel of fear.
Slowly. I think, for the first time when I was watching a documentary, I'd say it was made in probably 2013. It was about this group of journalists go to North Korea and they basically, it was Vice, because Vice was earlier. I don't know who did this. I think it might have been CNN even.
Oh, wow.
But they were in Pyongyang and they're talking to North Koreans, and North Koreans, I think for the first time I've ever heard say, we wouldn't mind being reunited with South Korea.
Well, actually, according to the Vice, all North Koreans expect reunification will happen because...
Under what terms?
Well, because what they've said is, it's got to happen. We already have the supreme leaders, so we're just waiting for the South to come back into the fold of having no food and lots of militarization.
In terms of diplomatic relations, I'd say we definitely had a thaw. I think this definitely put a tiny dent in it, but their relations are still, again, kind of in shambles.
Brutal, sadistic, idiotic, communistic.
There's more sanctions than you can count. I don't really think that that this hydrogen bomb will just make things better. It'll definitely make things worse.
Oh yeah, of course it'll make things worse. And just, I think what really ultimately matters is not the fact that, oh, do they have the hydrogen bomb? It's just, oh, they're still testing nukes. They're still trying to advance their technology. We heard earlier in last year that they had claimed that they now have the ability to miniaturize nukes, which is a pretty big step, because if you have a giant nuke, the only way, like, for example, when we first developed the nuclear weapons, they had to be dropped from airplanes because you couldn't really attach them to missiles, partially because missile technology was only extent to the German V-2 rocket at the time, intercontinental ballistic missiles, but they were still massive nukes. If you've ever seen pictures of them, they were huge, like the back of a school bus size big. But if you can miniaturize them, you can put them on the head of a missile, and they have missile technology, not great, but they could hit Seoul, they could hit Guam in theory.
Now again, these hydrogen bombs, although it's definitely a threat to have a hydrogen bomb, North Korea has terribly outdated military technology.
Their delivery systems are crap.
And the fact that they have this could just be a really crappy hydrogen bomb, and they're just like, oh, but they treat it as a major milestone, like, oh, we have a hydrogen bomb, and advertise it as something good, when literally it could be 30 years outdated, and you might not even be able to fire it that far.
Well, yeah, I mean, in all realism, if North Korea attempted to launch a preemptive strike, I'm not a military expert, but I do try to follow this. I would say there's a much higher percentage than I think people would think that they would just have some giant screw-up that prevents anything from happening.
Right.
I mean, if a war happened, we would have immediate aerial superiority over North Korea, because their Air Force is complete garbage. ISIS debatably has a better Air Force than they do. And ISIS has one plane.
I mean, on North Korea, I'll give them credit, they do have more ground troops and infantry, but that's incredibly outdated as well. And their morals at an all-time low. That's what we have to add.
Yeah, but I mean, even when you say they have so many ground troops, I think the two things you need to counter is, one, they're extremely malnourished, and also they boost up their numbers by basically, in theory, if a war happened, everyone's in the army.
It's a forced conscription to be in the military, yeah.
Yeah, so, and when you look at that, you kind of see that you have, so when you're having a horribly malnourished people, but they are immensely driven to love Kim Jong-un, but I think they're finally starting to reach a point where they start to realize, hey, things suck here.
Exactly.
So, and do you think that the current North Korean regime will be able to survive the next 50 years?
People are giving predictions that the current, like with Kim Jong-un, will
last
more than 5. I think he will be the last leader. I think people are realizing, because we have people smuggling stuff in USBs and giving them to North Koreans, and they're finally figuring out slowly
what's
that
going on.
That the Americans, who they hate so much, are actually a very prosperous nation and are on the right side of history. And I think,
I don't like to use that term, but yeah, we don't send you to concentration camps for insulting Obama.
And morale is definitely at an all-time low in North Korea, because although the Kim regime is definitely highly respected, the conditions given to them by the regime are very low.
Well, and I think the other thing is even the high-level generals have got to realize they have an unstable leader. I mean, when you had Kim Il-sung, he's the first leader. He was a general. He was a military leader with military experience. He was a decent leader, like an evil leader, but I mean a just horrible, terrible leader by anyone's reasonable standards, but he was at least able to lead the country. Then you have Kim Jong-il, who's grown up pretty much his whole life knowing that he is the chosen one. He is awesome, and he wasn't a great leader. They had, I believe, millions of North Koreans. I'm trying to think. They only
died of famine, probably.
I think up to 4 million North Koreans died during the famines during the 90s, and then now we have Kim Jong-un, who's also been raised in an environment even more so where you're the greatest person ever, where he just completely out of touch with reality. I just can't. I don't think any military leader would be like, okay, we're gonna be totally fine. His daughter, by all means, we're gonna have a third generation of somebody who has spent their entire life believing that they're the chosen one and anything they do is correct. So,
and at least what the news makes it feel like is that there's also a higher number of people getting executed within the regime, like generals.
Oh yeah,
his uncle got executed.
He's purging, because I think people are starting to realize, hey, I mean, just because we think he's all powerful doesn't actually mean he's all powerful.
Exactly.
All right, but we've talked quite a lot about this, and we need to keep these things short and brief for you, the viewer, so you can digest it as quickly as possible. Moving on to the U.S. stock market. So I don't have a Chromebook, so Jack, could you switch to the article?
Boom.
Wait for it.
This one? Yep.
We have two of them, but we'll go with that one. All right,
Good.
so China's stock market, we'll focus on that one first because it's starting to look like they're arguably the more important stock market to pay attention to. Not really, but it's getting a little uncomfortably close. Now, so China's stock market took a substantial dip during the past week and they halted all trading. But they have done this in the past. And overall, I mean, again, people do need to mention China's economy isn't on the verge of collapse.
No.
We aren't like so close to all of a sudden crashing into another Great Recession.
No.
But I do find it a little bit interesting. I would like to see how this plays out. I hope we don't have to, but if it does happen, if we end up in another recession-like period, will everybody blame Obama the same way everybody blamed Bush? Or will they?
I don't think so.
Or will the liberal media then say, "Oh, well, the president really doesn't control the
I think they will
economy."
try to defend him, yeah.
But Fox News, they will be the happiest people on earth.
They'll definitely have open season on Obama.
Oh yeah, well I mean when, don't they?
That's true. That's true.
So that will be interesting to see if it happens, but I'm really hoping it doesn't because
Yeah, it's not a good thing.
we're starting to get to the age where we'll enter the job market, and it kind of sucks to enter the job market when the economy is in the toilet.
These are being felt everywhere, though. America's feeling it too.
Well, oh yeah,
Terms of the bad stock market.
because so the U.S. has had a pretty terrible start to 2016 in terms of the economy. The Dow is down hundreds of points.
Hundreds.
The S&P is down, 500 is down, I think 7.3% since the Fed raised interest rates. And just in 2016, they've gone down 6%. It's I believe it's the worst 5-day start in their entire history. So overall, this does not spell a great first quarter for anyone, really.
Definitely.
But I mean, things change. If you've ever seen a stock graph, it's never a flat line.
Sporadic. Yeah.
Unless it's at zero, which...
Boom, boom, boom.
Exactly. But overall, do you think this will devolve into some chaotic 2008-esque scenario?
Well, it's definitely been a while since we've seen the stock market go down like that. But I think it will recover eventually. I think this will last less than... I hope it lasts less than a week when it starts going back up. But again, the stock market's almost impossible to predict, so...
I mean, but though, this would be pretty rapid, because when you look at just U.S. history, we had the recession in the late 70s that kind of got Carter kicked out of office, in addition to the Iran hostage situation and him just not being a great president. Great post-president, though. Probably our
Definitely
best.
one of the best post-presidents.
But, so then Reagan comes in and things start even out. Then you have the Clinton boom years, which everybody either attributes to Clinton or is a side effect of Reaganomics.
Yeah.
Depends which side you're on. Then we have Bush. Things are going pretty good up until the end of Bush. And so that's a solid almost 30 years. Yeah. And now, so I don't necessarily know if we have to expect this every presidential term, every 2 presidential terms, I guess. But
I hope not.
that would be unfortunate. The curse of the final year. I hope that won't happen.
We'll see.
But overall, we will continue to update you on this. Hopefully there won't be anything else to update you on except for good news, but that doesn't really sell. So
Nope.
even if things go good, the media will probably say it's bad. So we will always have stuff for you to learn. All right, moving on to the Syrian refugee crisis and the crisis in the Middle East as a whole. Sorry for devoting so little time to the stock market. We spent a little too much time in North Korea, so we're going to have to speed things up a bit. Now, Syrian refugees, the country that's taking in the most of them, is Germany. The one that people care about, the biggest European nation, so to speak.
Yeah.
That is willingly taking them in. There are more in other areas, but they're just getting shifted to Germany. Germany's taken in over 1.1 million Syrian refugees since they started to allow them, and has already spent $6.6 billion on them. This is creating a lot of fire for Angela Merkel, who's taking criticism from both the left, which she's always getting, due to the fact that Merkel is been chancellor and is a member and is the leader of the Christian Democratic Union, which is the catch-all center-right party in Germany. And now she's taking fire from her own side because letting in all the refugees wasn't a very popular decision.
No, definitely not.
And it is now literally costing her a lot, $6.6 billion to be exact. And that number is only going to go up as more and more refugees are passing in. But now Angela Merkel is starting to back up on her things. So she is, if you can pull up the article, she's announced that she's going to be starting a little bit fewer Syrian refugees coming in, limitations on this, which in my mind I think is a smart idea at the time because, well, I definitely think we should be helping refugees. I think, one, you need to figure out if you can handle it, Because if Germany gets screwed over, then all of Europe gets screwed over, and then it's a domino effect, and things go south pretty quickly. Yeah, would you care to elaborate a little bit on this?
Well, in terms, to be specific on what Mrs. Merkel decided to do.
Chancellor Merkel. You need to be respectful.
What Chancellor Merkel decided to implement after all the refugees started coming in is that she's going to tighten the law on denying the right of asylum for those who have committed crimes.
So, I mean, it hasn't been the most popular in Germany whatsoever, as a huge portion of these refugees, in fact, the majority of them are in Bavaria, which is a region in Germany. I guess you compare it to a state. And if you want to compare it to a state, it's the Texas of Germany. Yeah. They tried to become an independent country on numerous occasions.
Failed.
And they were a little bit successful back during the 1800s, but...
way back when.
Yeah. But then they, according to certain articles, a lot of them regard themselves as Bavarians first, Germans second. And being a descendant of Bavarian Germans, we need to rebel and overthrow the entire dirty federalist government. Just kidding, of course. But what we're seeing here... What?
Bavarian Germans, man.
Yeah. Freedom.
I love
Bavaria and Prussia need to restart and form their own country.
True.
Alright, yeah. Because screw Lower Hessians.
Amen.
Upper
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay, but back to the Syrian refugees. We're seeing that, unfortunately, it is expensive, and the money has to come from somewhere, and that somewhere is people's tax dollars. So it's not popular, really, amongst anybody, except for the people who are really into helping the refugees.
This is truly a global issue.
It definitely is a global issue.
Because even the United States is taking in refugees.
We are. Canada's taking in refugees.
Canada's taking
near
in
to
their
this
share.
guy.
There's refugees coming to our area.
They're coming to the state that we are in, which I don't know if we've mentioned, and I don't know if we will.
Very liberal state.
Yeah, we'll give you that. We're not in Texas or Utah.
No.
But overall, where you, sorry, the Utah thing, that just got me. But what we're seeing with the refugees, we also, unfortunately, aren't seeing as much international response to the cause of the refugee crisis as I think any of us would like. Because ISIS is still around. They're getting beaten back. I believe did you say that the lieutenant of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi?
I think it was the second deputy leader of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Yes. Really long name.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Yes, he's been taken out by an Iraqi airstrike, I believe.
For once.
So yeah, that is a good thing. But I mean, still, I think it's just kind of shameful on the part of the international community that we've had a terrorist organization create a country that has been able to survive for over 2 years. That in and of itself is a complete failure on the part of the international community. A government that's brutally murdering anybody who doesn't follow their ideologies and is merely saying, we'll take in all the people who you're displacing, but we won't do anything to A, end this, and B, help these people get back to where they are. I mean, the majority of refugees didn't want to become refugees, and if we don't stop ISIS, we're arguably just as guilty because we are giving them a reason to flee. We're forcing them to flee by not creating an environment where they can stay in Syria and stay in Iraq and live where they originally lived.
Because the majority of these people do want to return to Syria someday, and I think by not helping, we're definitely making the situation worse.
Yeah, so I think we need to step up in this case. Germany has sent jets in. U.S. has sent jets in. Canada's pulled its jets out, because screw you, Justin Trudeau.
Say what you will. I don't like him, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll discuss that in a later episode. Please come on our show, though, sir. Alright, but I suppose that kind of wraps it up.
Wraps it up.
Alright.
Can I get some shout-outs?
Jack will give us those shout-outs from the Instagram community.
Yeehaw.
Alright, in the future, again, guest hosts are coming. We're just currently in talks, and we're having some scheduling difficulties, but we will overcome them. Now, we hopefully, please tell us any suggestions you want to see for the future of the podcast.
A Chairman Mao segment was brought up.
Yes.
Want to address that?
No. We are, we love you, Shang, but in limited amounts is best. Yeah.
Maybe in the future we'll have him on, but that's a long time away.
Oh, thankfully. But don't worry, we will continue to do whatever we can to have future guests on, and we will be continuing to do whatever we can to advance this. Now, Overall, I think that the podcast is going in an upward direction. We'll continue to be following the presidential race as it unfolds, as we're getting pretty close to seeing if it's going to be Trump versus Hillary or someone else versus Hillary.
And we're 23 episodes in, so it just goes up from here.
Yeah. All right, Jack, give us our followers.
Andres, Tucc, which is pronounced Tooch 30.
Andres Tooch 30.
Maybe a guest.
Cool
maybe
name.
not.
This is an individual who might be a guest on our show. Very cool guy.
Political_NY_USA.
New York. Great state. I was born there. But we aren't in New York. That's another thing we'll give you.
Jack Rivette, former host of J-Ray Vlogs.
Yes, great guy. He has dyed his hair green recently. Just thought I'd mention that.
RTG.
Quite nice, actually.
.GOP.
Hey, grand old party. I think we've given a shout out to these guys before.
Really?
You guys owe us.
I'm going to scroll. We're going to scroll. We're going to find a good one.
Going down? Okay.
All right, here we go. I already said that one.
Yep.
We have 1,191 followers, by the way.
That's good. We are running out of time a little bit, though. So
Okay, we're good. Okay. Panthers_are_awesome. Not bad.
That's cool. Great species of cat. Large jungle cat.
And this _machines_kills_socialists. Classical liberal. That's what it says under it.
All right. More power to you. Please don't actually kill socialists.
Please don't.
Yeah, you can disagree with them, but please don't kill them. I think we have one more person who deserves a shout out.
All right, let's find it.
Before we wrap it up.
Libertarian_guy, dank memes and political dreams. That's what it says.
All right, that's a long name. Go Rand Paul.
Amen.
I guess. All right, but that's, I guess, wrapping it up for this episode of the Analytical Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please do those things. I'm Clark Wahlberger.
And I'm Jack Horvath.
See you next time.